Hello and welcome to the Expressed on Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Rich Adrian-Smith. This podcast is on a journey to uncover the essence of full authentic expression and what it means to be expressed on purpose and live a rich life. My aim is to help high-achieving executives and entrepreneurs who, despite their success, still feel empty and stressed, helping them to finally find true fulfillment, purpose, and freedom that they've been seeking all along, helping them to live their rich life. On today's very first episode, we'll be interviewing Lisa Flynn, an authenticity coach and communication specialist on a mission to connect people with the most important thing in their life, their true self. As a former chief culture officer, emotional intelligence researcher at Yale, and international yoga teacher, her superpower is cultivating psychologically safe spaces that empower people to tap into their truth. Her goal is to help leaders communicate confidently, build fulfilling relationships, and create extraordinary lives based on who they really are. Lisa shares her work worldwide through private coaching, authentic relating teachings, and retreats. In this conversation, we explore authenticity and the journey towards full authentic expression, alongside our personal experiences and challenges faced in breaking free from societal expectations. We delve into the concept of acceptance and the importance of self-compassion and tolerating discomfort in the process of embracing authenticity. Finally, we go into the relationship between authenticity and being a professional in the workplace and managing conflicts. I had a lot of fun exploring these topics with Lisa, so let's dive in. Welcome, Lisa. Lovely to see you again. Lovely to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Well, you just guided me through 3 lovely deep breaths, so I feel grounded and excited. There's a little butterflies in my stomach, but also, a sense of excitement to reconnect with you after a year and have this conversation. How are you feeling? What's going on in your body?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was happy to do a bit of grounding as well. This is something that I'm very familiar with, building relationships with people and exploring quite naturally. And it's also new to be bringing that into a space where we're guiding people to understand who we are and the topics we're talking about. So it feels also exciting. Also, I would normally think I would have some nerves at this point, but actually I just feel quite excited by it. I don't feel nervous, I guess, because I've met you in a very unique setting. So I feel very safe. I think that's kind of the word.
Yeah.
And curious. I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. And so, as we said at the start, this podcast and this show is on this journey to uncover full authentic expression and what that means, and exploring it from all different angles and perspectives. And so it's lovely to speak with you as an authenticity coach and communication specialist to really get a feel for your experiences with authenticity and your journeying with it, and you as a person of how you live into that. And so I think a lovely place for us to start would be for you just to give me and the listeners a little bit of a flavor of who you are and some of the things that you create and offer in the world.
Well, I am really passionate about full authentic expression, probably because for so long in my life, there was a part of me that felt like I couldn't. There is a big pattern of people pleasing. I was really good at presenting as very competent and intelligent and nice and not getting into conflict. And so this good girl persona, so to speak, was very prominent in my life. And it helped me move through lots of different situations until it stopped working. And that's when it just stopped working in my relationship, in my work. And I could feel that as I feel exhausted. I don't feel like myself. I'm unhappy. I don't know why. Everything in my external world is beautiful. You know, objectively, if you were looking at my life, you'd be like, wow, you live in Bali. You live doing your dream job. You're surrounded by all these amazing people, but inside I wasn't feeling aligned and authentic and happy. So it led me on this journey to uncover how I got here, why I got here, and ultimately now being very passionate about supporting people to find their truth and live their best life and follow their dreams. So that's what I love. And my favorite way to do that is in a one-on-one container, because there's a certain energy of intimacy and an efficiency, I would say, that can happen in a one-on-one space.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. There was something I saw you said, which was around their true lives or authenticity just as a topic. And I'm curious what to hear your thoughts are on what authenticity actually means.
Yeah, I was waiting for this question.
Big question. Obviously it was going to come. Here we go.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to shy away from like a specific definition, but the flavor of it that I'm really interested in is how to express your experience, like my true experience, with another person. So that is like the relating part is very exciting for me. There are other, ways of exploring this within ourselves and within our careers and so forth. But yeah, how do you I think authenticity is about being true to who you are inside your experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess there's a curiosity for me around this truth of what's going on inside. And as you said before, kind of the good girl, good boy persona, feeling like we need to be little Miss or Mr. Perfect in order to be loved and accepted in the world. And somehow that was an authentic part of us. And yet that mask is kind of masking the truth of what's kind of trying to break through that ego's shape. And I don't know who it was, but someone had this concept of this interplay between the ego and the soul. And the soul is this constant, messy, ever expanding, creative energy that always is growing and moving in new ways. And the ego is constantly trying to put some kind of shape and structure and container, and in containment, trying to keep it safe. And there's that dance between the fluidity of the soul and the kind of the rigidness of the ego. And so with your experience there of being the good girl and then coming more into authenticity, how would you say that has kind of transpired, maybe on a level of intellectual kind of understanding it, and also just as a human of what you actually went, what that means to go from being the good girl version into a more authentic version of yourself?
Yeah, great question. I started to become more aware of this pattern. That was kind of the gateway drug, so to speak. It was where I was like, wow, I'm starting to connect with a larger truth here. And that awareness was very enlivening to see. It was difficult to feel, but it gave me hope. It gave me somewhere to go with it. And usually what happens, I think, is, okay, I have this awareness and now I want to move into action. How do I stop being the good girl? How do I not do that anymore? Because I can, I can see that it's ineffective. So then the attempts to do the opposite. And that's where I would kind of flounder. Okay, well then who am I without this persona? How do I be more true? And that was its own kind of experience for me of sampling and getting stuck and then feeling frustrated and like resentful towards these kind of parts of me. So the bridge that helped me and my journey has been this missing link, which I think is a lot of people's blind spot, is acceptance. And it's kind of a like, okay, you can throw this word around, but there's something very deep and profound about understanding why seeing and loving and having compassion for this part of me and the fact that it was trying to protect me and keep me safe as you were speaking. And only from there was I actually able to change and experience a new way of living, and more energy and freedom, and that's the game changer.
Yeah, acceptance is really a curious beast to kind of grapple with. It sounds so simple, like, oh, just accept yourself as you are and move on. And yet there's so much to that experience. And personally speaking, some of my journey, there was a belief of accepting And then it took certain set of circumstances to kind of force me into accepting and force me into realizing like, oh, that's just the way I am. And I need to now then I do something about it rather than kind of sweep it under the rug to actually allow it to be authentically who I am, rather than this part's acceptable, this part's not acceptable. I'm just going to put a little shell on that one and put a little bow on it and try to make it look pretty. And actually it's kind of like you can only polish a shit so much before it's still a shit. And so you have to accept it as it is. And so I wonder, in that acceptance phase for you, if and how you had any powerful approaches. I know that in Hawaii, where you are, there's the Ho'oponopono, is that what you said? The I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you, I love you. And that, I feel, for me, is a really powerful way of accepting, because it covers off all the key aspects to why you wouldn't accept somebody when there's some kind of grudge hold, or when there's some kind of desire to be a certain other way. And so I wonder what acceptance was like for you.
I would love to answer that. And I'm just too curious about grounding some of what you shared, or getting some like tangible examples of what you're speaking about, because it sounds so alive and real for you. If you wouldn't mind sharing, like, what part of that was were you forced to accept, and what was that like?
For me, there's been a big journey also through the good boy aspect of things. Growing up in the UK in pretty privileged circumstances, and my level of worth was determined by my grades and by my performance at school. And so that was acceptable or not accepted. If you didn't perform, you weren't really accepted. You were kind of like in the people who just, they're going to wash out kind of thing. And then kind of living into that paradigm where it's like, I have to be a certain way in order to be accepted. And there's no real role models or data points for me to relate to in order to say there's a different way of doing things. And the entrepreneurship world is kind of like, oh, they're lucky, they're one-off if they've gone and made entrepreneurial ventures work. Like, no one succeeds in entrepreneurial ventures. That was kind of the idea. It's like, climb a ladder in the corporate world, have security, have the safety. That's acceptable and that's valid. And so then, firstly, for me, going off on an entrepreneurial venture to build Gogglesock, my business, was in itself not accepted on various forms. But then even more so within that, I was not being true to who I am today, because I was still operating in finance and operations and doing a lot of the sales. And that was the part I loved the most, was building relationships with key clients and key suppliers. And while that in itself can blossom into a career, the kind of the intrapersonal, the introspective, the human aspect of it is what really lit me up. And I then wasn't accepting that part of myself, because I was kind of saying that's a skill and it helps me to do these other things, rather than like that can be my thing as like the forefront of that journey. And so my transition into coaching kind of 3 or 4 years ago really sparked that journey. And the biggest challenge I've had is putting me, Rich Adrian-Smith, out on the front line. It was very easy for me to say, hey, look at this product, I can sell you this product. When I became the product, suddenly all of my shadows came to the surface, all of my procrastinations and limiting beliefs and self-sabotaging tendencies kind of came to the surface. And when I talk about changing circumstance, kind of igniting that fire, it's really then changing, for me anyway, right now, financial circumstances, where it's like, I can't keep fucking around. I need to face these things that I've been like, I've healed those things and they're better now. I need to actually go and close the gap between what I know I need to do and what I'm actually doing. And that gap being this potential chasm. And at the same time, it's minute. It's in a fraction of a moment of just taking a decision, making an action, taking a step. So that was a long-winded way of sharing a little bit about what I'm going through right now.
I feel so excited hearing about your journey, because you took a step, you took a leap out of a structure that you grew up in about how you're supposed to be and what's safe and what's right. And you went on your entrepreneurial journey. You did it in a way, it sounds like, that was, on your edge. So there was some safety in staying in finances and so forth, but you still went out of the mold. And as you got that taste for it, it sounds like you started to realize actually the relational pieces that's what really lights me up. So then you took the next leap. So all these little steps, I mean, they're not little, they're huge steps, actually, in my mind, to now where you are now, which is to follow your dreams of actually doing the thing that lights you up the most, which is coaching. So of course, you're going to be continuing to face, now you're at your next edge. And it sounds like procrastination is the small block that's starting to poke up, and you're ready to like really look at this and why it's here and how to move forward, because this is important to you. This is your dream.
For sure. Yeah. And I think there's a curiosity for me around authenticity and this journey, because sometimes it can be very difficult to discern between what is authentic and what is our ego. What aspect of us which is saying like, oh no, just like relax this evening and take a night off and take it easy, is actually out of pure loving self-care versus the procrastinating, self-sabotaging ego who says, I want to keep you safe from taking too many scary things. So just like watch the next episode on Netflix rather than stepping through. And sometimes, in my experience, it's kind of like you need a knock in the right direction or a fire to kind of kindle that like, oh, I could do that and I see it and I'm going to still choose this direction, which I know deep down is what I want to do. And so where was I going to go with this one? That was going to be into, where I'm at today with it. And again, within authenticity, a challenge of getting clear on what my goals are, what I genuinely in my heartfelt desire want to be progressing towards. This has been something where I've been like over here, and then the inertia of that.
Right. Wow. Okay. So if I was in a session with you, I would start going through a process with this pattern of procrastination. And so I can kind of speed up on that, because there's a part of me that I've gone through, I still live through that. Like procrastination for me looks like overwhelm. I start to think about all these things that I have to do, I should do, and it spins me out. Like I should be posting on Instagram. I should have reached out to this person, all the things that, my website, blah, blah, blah. I like expand it out, feel overwhelmed. And then I shut down because I've experienced burnout. So I went through, fast forward, a process of realizing, oh my God, part of, for me, and it's probably going to be different for you in some other forms, but I burned out. And so I realized, oh, this part of me that's procrastinating and not doing is protecting me from not overdoing, which is another pattern of mine. Because when I overdo, then that also didn't work out. So starting to love this part, but ultimately, what do I want underneath all of this? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My husband's calling. Let me just tell him. Real life stuff. Excuse me. Let me just tell him. No. Okay. I started to look at, I want to go through all these layers, but for me, it was ultimately that I was feeling like an imposter. I was overdoing to make sure that everyone knows that I'm capable, that I can do my job, that I'm good at this, so I could get that feedback, but it would perpetuate this cycle of I'm not good enough and I feel like an imposter. And same with the procrastination, which is also this part of me that like wants to get it right, and I want to be perfect, and I want to be the best version of myself, which is for me underneath that, this feeling of, I just want to belong. Rich, I want you to like me. People out there in the world, I want you to like me. And it's easier said than done, but it is curiously questioning all of these layers down to that ultimate desire and seeing that it's actually on my team. Like the procrastination is trying to give me what I really, 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 really want, which is belonging and safety and love. Then, wow, that just, and it doesn't have to go anywhere, by the way. Like it shows up all the time. And sometimes I do well with it. Sometimes I'll watch Netflix and watch myself go in that direction too. And that's also okay. So
yeah, I love that. And it's, as you kind of alluded to right there, it's then that aspect of allowing yourself to be in those states without the shaming and coming through them without identifying or staying in it. And that can kind of be quite pervasive in how subtle it becomes when you kind of get into a habituation of a certain pattern, because it's just like, that's just who I am. I'm just somebody who does this. And so, the internal family systems is coming up. Are you familiar with that? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, so you're talking about the protector and the firefighter and the exiles that are kind of coming in there. And without diving into that on this episode, it's really profound work to be allowing those parts to have their space and to be reparenting those parts with loving, compassionate energy so that they can actually come into the real essence of what they're there to do. It's like, hey, I'm just actually raising a flag right now to say that you have some unmet emotional needs, and you have started to recognize this flag as, oh, go and do this, that, or the other coping mechanism. And actually now, because you're so many steps through it, you have to recognize the coping mechanism in order to recognize what the flag is.
Exactly. And ultimately it's like, oh my God, everyone's on my team.
Yeah.
Everyone loves me. All of this is for, in service of what I deeply want. Like, what a miracle. What a completely opposite way of seeing the world that I continue, that paradox continues to just like inspire and delight me to be like, oh, it's not pushing this away. It's not against me. It's like, it's on my team. Like, what? I love that feeling.
Yeah. It's kind of wild when you start to realize like, okay, like that. Yeah. That part wasn't the villain. That was actually helping me out. And at the same time, it's someone had to get in this analogy of you trying to put the fire out of this house, and every day you put it out and the next day it's on fire again. You're like, what the fuck's going on? And then it turns out that you're the one setting a light to it each night. And this like paradox of you're both the firefighter and the arson, and just setting a light to these things.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the part where it's like fun. I love to think about it. I love to see these patterns. And then also when I can feel like, where is that happening? How can I be in my body with it? And even before this podcast, right? There's a part of me that was like, I need to prepare. I should read up on stuff. I should get definitions of things. And this is, like all these old stories that continue to come up. And I was like, okay, I see you. And I'm like, okay, it's all about my energy though. That's how do I want to be on this podcast with you? How do I want to experience myself with you? Do I want to be stressed and tense? And I don't know, like that, even if I have the perfect words and I say the right thing and I have this laundry list of amazing analogies to give you, that doesn't feel good to me. Like that's not how I'm trying to move through the world. So I put on some music and it changed everything. It felt so good. So movement. It's not going to go away. That's part of this is like, okay, this is, and I love it. And I'm learning to accept it.
And have you found as you've gone through your own journey that you've become more comfortable with the discomfort?
Yeah, definitely. That is the coolest thing to feel. It's amazing to be like, wow, I can tolerate so much more discomfort in my system. And that's something that like no one can take away from me. So powerful.
Yeah, it's powerful. And I guess also to kind of side note into a little bit of context of how we met, because I think it's curious. So we both met this time last year, roughly in an event called Dojo in Bali, which is fundamentally very difficult to explain what it is. And at the same time, it's basically humans being humans from the aspect of allowing full authentic expression in a safe space to explore these different aspects of it. And one thing kind of stood out to me, which was that during one of these final stages where I was sharing a bit about the plight of being a white privileged man who'd created my own cell of pressure and lack of self-worth that was hindering my expression, and that being seemingly insignificant compared to some other challenges people have gone through. And yet that's my challenge that's keeping me stuck. And when I shared that, I got very emotional and I got very into the experience. And something you shared afterwards of like, I had to come over because you were magnetic. And that stuck with me. And I think is also interesting to reflect on how when we're trying to fit in and when we're belonging, we become in this sea of sameness. And when we allow this authenticity to come out, suddenly we poke our heads out and then everybody can see you. And that is magnetizing for the people who relate to what it is that you're going through and relate to your experience, because they're like, wow, that gives me permission to be more of myself. Or wow, I want to go and see like what else is going on in their world. So that journey into allowing this soul expression in its weirdness, uniqueness, and allow the ego just to be there, be like, I'm so ashamed by myself doing this thing right now. And yet you're there just being a weirdo or being fully expressed or just doing whatever it is you do, and realizing that for me anyway, the hardest part is going from 0 to 1. The hardest part is stepping into the arena. It's kind of easy once you're in to be in it. Like, you're not worried about like, oh my God, I needed to have remembered all those things that I wish I'd looked up. It's actually like, no, I'm in it and I'm just in the flow of it. Whereas that moment, split second, minute, however long you want to procrastinate or think about it for, is one of the hardest parts, in my opinion, of like pre-action, pre-taking the step. And that's when the mind can be the most strong to say like, don't do it. You need to do all these other things. The protector comes in and wants you to be more of something that he can control. And so this magnetic authenticity, I wonder if that's something that you think people can turn on, or if that's something you think takes time to really be with these different parts of ourselves, because really there's a lot of wounding that might be involved with it to allow ourselves to take that step. And for some people, it's stronger than it is for others. So I wonder how long that journey is with you and with your clients of creating that sense of safety in order to face that discomfort.
Oh, my mind is going in all these different directions because that was such a powerful moment. And I remember, that it wasn't the words that you used, right? Like the story of it was so human and universal that even though I'm a woman, I grew up in a completely different country and culture and context. And, I could relate to that feeling, which I imagine a lot of people could as well. So you sharing the most sincere truth that you are experiencing, it somehow became this microphone of, this microphone of truth and permission. And so, that's why I spoke about your magnetism. And I imagine, and this is my projection, because I don't feel necessarily magnetic, right? I'm like, when I do those things, it's not like, wow, I'm so shiny. I just have this is all I know. This is my world. And I don't really have anything else to share besides this experience that's happening within me. And touching that and expressing it has such a ripple effect. So did you feel magnetic? What did it feel like? If you could remember, could you turn it on to go back to your question? Yeah,
thank you. For me, it kind of comes into emotions, really. It's like emotions, energy in motion, and that magnetism is cultivated at a electromagnetic level in the body. Of when emotions start to arising, this energy starts to pulse in your body that you can't not listen to it. You can't not notice the anger that comes up or the sadness or the grief. It just arises in your body as a charge. And so I think that charge kind of pulses out, and people don't have to say anything or move or do anything. You can walk into a room and be hit by like, holy shit, there's a lot of like intention in here, and there's a lot of like energy, and energy being magnetic. And so that emotional aspect of it is this curious part, again, around being a good girl, good boy, because we've numbed and we've shut off those parts of ourselves. And so actually we've reduced our magnetism in that state. And when we start to allow ourselves to be more emotional, we start to become more magnetic and more connectable. You know, people can connect with you better. But that kind of spins me onto a topic that I was curious to hear your thoughts about, which is this idea of emotions, full authentic expression in the workplace, in the professional world. And, you know, there's this idea of like, it's not personal, it's just business, and people having to put on these masks. And of course, we need to do business. You don't want people crying all the time. But I wonder what your thoughts are on being authentic and being in a professional workplace.
Yeah. We spend so much time, so many hours in the day doing the work that we do in the world. And if I'm not able to be myself in a space that I'm spending most of my time, that's not a life that I want to live. That's not a world I want to live in. So anybody who is making inroads to create psychological safety, to normalize that we are human and it's not just about productivity or end results, is a hero in my world. Like the more we do this, the more we're actually making a larger impact on the world. So a lot of that, I think, starts with leadership. It has to start at the very top, period. Like that's kind of where I've seen the fastest, most efficient shifts in an entire ecosystem, whether that is a company, a nonprofit foundation, a school. It's those decision makers who have to really embody a certain level of openness to give permission to the rest of the community. And that's part of being a leader. I think that is the illusion that we live in, that leaders have to be perfect and that as a leader, I have to show up in a certain way. It's a disservice, and it's so common. It's human and it's natural. We want to embody a leader. What does that mean? So questioning what it means to be a leader and the leaders that we admire, there's a lot of value in exploring that question. I think it's really, really important.
Yeah, what's coming up right there in that moment is the position at which the leader leads from. Are they leading from the front, or are they leading from the back, or are they leading from the center? And it's then this positioning of, hey, look at me, I'm a leader, do everything like me, or the position of like, hey, I'm a leader and I'm still human and we're working on this thing together. And there's a team aspect to it. And then even within that, though, I'm still on this curiosity of how to balance or how to blend that authenticity with leadership and with the workplace. So take, for example, you're in a meeting and somebody says something and they've said it in a tone that's pretty offensive and it's pretty harsh, and they've said something that's kind of degrading, and emotions arise, and you're in that circumstance. What level of authenticity do you think is worthy of a leader in that circumstance?
Right. In that situation, is the leader giving that?
The leader's receiving some, like, there's a team member who doesn't agree with what they're saying, and they're saying it in a way like you're wrong and in a kind of offensive way.
Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of a feedback situation, right? So there's something that happened, an experience of within the communication that you want to give feedback on. I would say first you have to figure out when to give that feedback. So it might not be in that moment, right? It doesn't mean I have to be authentic right now, because that might not be the right timing. It might not be the most valuable place where they can actually receive the feedback. So that would be the first thing, is even deciding and asking for permission, asking to see if they're ready to receive that. Or checking in. So when, like, why and how. There's some different layers of exploring that would impact the delivery of the feedback.
And even before the feedback, sorry, just jump in, even before the feedback, but in the moment, I guess is my essence of in moment by moment, authentic experiencing in the professional workplace.
Yeah.
And again, it's kind of like this English saying, keep calm, carry on. And it's like not wanting to show face or to try to show face in the professional workplace so that people perceive you as this stiff upper-lipped person that can get through everything and nothing kind of shakes you, which on the one side needs very regulated nervous system to not be triggered, but in a certain circumstance where I guess it's justified for a kind of emotionally charged response rather than a soft response. And I guess what I'm getting at is at some point between the overexpression, i.e. there's a big outburst of anger and like, how dare you speak to me like that, versus like underexpression of like meekness of like, ooh, they've hurt me and now I'm kind of feeling very like attacked. And then I'm going to go on defensive versus like this kind of authentic balanced place in the middle of receiving it, but still holding your ground without being charged in that moment. And there's still being a charge to it. There's still being an emotional potential response that could have arisen. It could have poked right on your trigger point of insecurity in that very moment. And for a lot of leaders, if you're in a very stressed work life, that might be enough to just tip you over the edge. That might be enough to put you from being stressed into this overwhelm or into reactive state. And so, yeah, I wonder if you can talk anything about that.
Yeah. I love what you shared about that moment to moment awareness and all these different pathways that are available, potentialities of choices and responses or reactions. I would say the most important thing is, or the most authentic thing that you can do is to check in with yourself and notice where you're at, what is happening inside of me as this is happening. From that place, then of course you can make these different decisions, but that would be the most authentic thing you could do, is to have the awareness and be with yourself, not dissociate, not whatever other thing that might happen, because the most authentic thing might be, I do feel triggered and I need to step away, or I do feel like this is the right moment to speak about it, or I do, like, whatever it is that is alive within you within that moment, it might be appropriate to address it right there. And that's authentic, right? There are many authentic behaviors that can come from this that could be beneficial depending on the circumstances, with the most important thing being staying with yourself and knowing what's happening within you.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree that awareness is the fundamental first step, and then assessing the boundary in kind of a split second is almost important of how to appropriately navigate the circumstance so as to be true to who you are in that moment. And that, I guess, for some people, it depends on your emotional intelligence, really. It depends on what ability you have to have trained yourself in order to respond a certain way, and it's still being within you, rather than like, I should respond like this, I should just pretend nothing happened and just move on, or they said, kind of hold a firm boundary of, for example, speaking directly to it in that moment, of maybe being like, hey, you're speaking in a way that might come across as offensive. I just want you to check on how you've shared that with me for a moment, and maybe to say it again in another way, and to kind of diffuse the situation by talking directly to it. And I think that's a curiosity around authenticity, is transparency, is just this level of truth at which you feel comfortable to share. And I guess in the end, that is a deep truth of authenticity, is how comfortable are you being transparent with your truth?
Yeah, beautifully said. I would add to that in these situations, I have to assess that my goal is, I'm imagining, like, my goal is to stay in connection with this person. This person matters to me. They're part of my team. I want to bring them along, just like the parts of me that procrastinate or get overwhelmed. You know, this is an externalized experience of a very similar thing. So to stay in connection, I might say, hey, I'm noticing that I'm really triggered by what you just said. And there's no goal necessarily of them apologizing or doing something different, but I want you to be in connection with me. So I want you to know me. I want us to know each other. And that is a beautiful expression of achieving this goal of staying in connection and turning this conflict into a powerful moment. Because we're never going to always agree. No two people are going to constantly be aligned and flowing. There's always going to be these moments. And I think actually there's some of the most powerful times where I've felt most connected to someone when they're willing to stay with me and I'm willing to stay with them and I'm willing to stay with myself through that intensity. And like we were talking about, tolerating, or not maybe tolerating, but being capable of receiving more discomfort in my system. Like, wow, I feel hot and sweaty when you say that. Like, I'm not really sure what to do right now. Yeah. I mean, that could be a huge opening. So I would say that. But then I also hear the voice that's like, well, how can a CEO go ahead and do that in a boardroom with, you know, there are other voices that I'm sure that can like explore that. So yeah, it depends on the specific situation, but I love this topic. And
then it kind of comes down to the type of leader, the type of executive, or the type of person that they are, because some people are just very much themselves. It doesn't matter if they're in a boardroom or if they're in their home or if they're wherever, they're them. And if you say something to them, then they're going to approach it. And other people are kind of playing this role. And this is kind of where execs or boardrooms can become challenging, is when everybody's playing this role that they believe that they should play, and it's not actually them. And that's then this mask with a shadow behind it of like, no, I can't have that part. And then everybody goes home to their partners and their wives and they're like, oh my God, that meeting was terrible. And it was so tense and nobody spoke about it and it felt awful. Compared to like, wow, someone spoke directly to that and it diffused the situation instantly because the other person could respond to the humanity of the person rather than the professional mask that everybody's trying to kind of face off with.
Exactly. Yeah. Imagine the safety that creates, because then it means you're allowed to disagree with the boss. You're allowed to speak and we can have dialogues around disagreements. You're not going to be fired or reprimanded or embarrassed or shamed in front of everyone. There's a real human experience happening here. And so then everyone's welcome to have some degree of their own feelings or making mistakes. Like, this is okay. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means maybe that team member they're going through something. And then there's some humanity that can be revealed as well. Like, wow, wouldn't normally talk to someone like that, but I'm on a short fuse because, you know, my wife's in the hospital and I'm struggling with all these things. So, you know, I deeply apologize. I shouldn't have said it like that. Like, who knows? There's so many possibilities that open up when we enter into connection, or even just asking, like, are you okay? Someone speaks in a way that is out of character, you know, that, you know, there might be something else going on, and it might just be a moment of compassion that, okay, well, is there something going on that they need some compassion around?
Yeah, they need some more love. They need some more support. You know, love in the workplace is also a curious word to knock around. And yeah, it's that holding connection, holding your presence in the discomfort. I think, kind of zooming back to our conversation before and also into society as a whole, there's a shift now into a very low tolerance of discomfort. And that low tolerance of discomfort percolates across all different aspects, including authenticity, because if you can't be in the discomfort, it's hard to be authentic, because authenticity is uncomfortable. To think it's going to be like, I
agree.
To think it's going to be like smooth and it's going to be nice and you're going to be like happy. It's like, unfortunately, it's not not that way. And that was one of the biggest takeaways I had from that dojo experience that we had together, was really around this, like, oh, I was like, got super angry and I was really like in my power, which I normally never do in that aspect. And people remained in it with me. And I know it was a safe setting for that. But at the same time, it just gave me that permission of like, oh, I can connect to that if I need to.
Yeah.
And I don't need to unsheath my sword and start swinging it around. But at the same time, it's there. I have that power inside of me to draw on. And I think that air is also important for people in the workplace, of like kind of the don't fuck with me because I just know my own power kind of energy.
Yeah. Great leaders have, actually, I'm not going to go in that direction. I really liked what you shared about doing this in relationships, in connection with other people, that there is some power in people witnessing you and you doing that in a setting with other nervous systems and other humans. Because I think a lot of these things get programmed in relational dynamics, whether it's with your family or with, you know, all these people in school, at work, that the best way that I've found for myself to liberate from any kind of patterns that all happen within the context of another person, they get unraveled within the context of another person. So it's the most valuable way for me to move through the world, is like through these relational spaces, just like the one you talked about in the boardroom, that might mirror another aspect of your life or something that might have happened when you were younger on the schoolyard, that can start to get integrated. And wow, so much energy, like you spoke about.
Yeah. And then, as you said, we spend most of our waking hours at work. So if we're putting that time into a bucket of like, there's no opportunity there for me to work on myself or to improve outside of, you know, certain circumstances, then we're missing out on this huge opportunity to reconnect with ourselves, to release parts of us that feel shameful in certain circumstances, and to just allow ourselves to be in that creative, safe, free flow state of the soul coming through in whatever way it wants to be. And that's when we're in the most magnetic and connected to our intuition. And also we're not doing our best work. You know, if we're in a fight or flight mindset and we're feeling defensive, we're not going to be able to think clearly and not going to be able to act clearly. So having that safe environment at work for me is really fundamental to doing good work, and to ironically having better performance and better results, because everybody's emotionally attuned and grounded and feeling safe to fail and to learn from it, rather than like, holy shit, I can't make any mistakes and I need this to be perfect, which isn't realistic anyway.
And it takes one person, right, to like make those shifts. So maybe I might be thinking, oh, I'm listening to this, well, I'm not the CEO of my company, or I'm not, but you might have a team, or you might be interacting with, like, you know, other support staff on the team. So even in you leading yourself and having those small interactions with whoever you're interacting with, because most people are gonna, even if you're not in sales and you're talking to people every day, like, you have so much power to influence the people around you, that I think, it's really valuable to give it a shot.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. We're coming up towards the hour now, so I just want to kind of round off the conversation with something I'm trying out, which is that if you had only whatever you're about to say being the only thing that the world knows about what you have to share or believe or think is real and valid, what would that be?
I'm just going to start talking, because I can already feel the part of me that's like, I've got to get this right. If this is the thing that I'm going to be sharing for the rest of my life on repeat, I would say, oh man, I have all these cliches coming. Love yourself and accept yourself, which I'll just ham up right now. But this is part of my process, is like, okay, going deeper. And as I talk about it, it helps me sink. I can feel even my energy like up here, sinking more down into my belly and my breath. Maybe it's this. It's like, stay with yourself. Don't ever, ever, ever leave your experience as much as you can is to pay attention, put your attention on your direct experience. This is the only thing we actually ever know. This is the closest to the truth of reality that anyone has access to. So find ways, whatever that is. There's so many ways to come back and draw your attention back. And I can name a bunch of different methods and techniques. So find whatever it is that works for you. But fundamentally, watching this life unfold is one of the most awe-inspiring, exciting, good fortune realities that we have the privilege of experiencing. So, figure out how to really be in your human experience. And I think all the answers are going to come. All the answers that you're looking for are right there in the light and the shadow and in each and every moment. So that's it.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for that share, and thank you for being the words that you were expressing in that moment and shining that light on that journey. I think that's really powerful for people to relate to. So thank you. And if anybody wants to learn more about you or what you have to share with the world, what's the best way to find out more?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, the Lisa Flynn, or email me, send me a DM. You can get my contact from Rich. I'm happy to have a conversation and see if there's any way that I can support you in living your most authentic life, living your dreams, and doing it in a way that feels graceful, easy, and playful. So reach out. I'd be happy to have a conversation.
Beautiful. Amazing. Well, thank you for your time today and your wisdom, Lisa, and enjoy the sunny shores of Hawaii, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you. So honored to be here. Thanks for the invitation, Rich.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for listening to today's episode. I hope you found some nuggets of wisdom that you can take away and start implementing in your own life. If you did, then it would mean a lot to me if you gave the show 5 stars and subscribed. That way you can come back for more next week and help spread the word. And if you really loved it and you want to find out more about how to work with me and how I can help you, then check out the links below or head over to my website, www.richadriansmith.com. And if this is bye for now, then I wish you a rich life.